episode 21 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Susie. I am your host and I am an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. For today's episode, I felt called to provide you with my top 10 tips for spiritual business owners. I train a lot of people not only in how to access their own Akashic records and do clearing in their own Akashic records, but also in respect of becoming professional practitioners. So, what would be level 2 and level 3. And we cover a certain aspect of what it's like to own and run a spiritual business in that class. And my students, when they get up and running and they're running their own businesses, will often reach out to me for little tips and bits of advice on how to run a spiritual business. So today I just wanted to share with you all some tips that I hope you will find useful if you are a spiritual business owner for running a spiritual business. Running any type of business is a very spiritual process in itself, because what is going to happen when you are running a business, especially if it's a spiritual business, is you are going to be faced with wounds that you have. You're going to be faced with difficult decisions to make, and seeing your spiritual business as an extension of your spiritual development can help you navigate through this energy. In the Akashic Records, you have your personal Akashic Records guides, and you also have your Akashic Records business guides. So for those of you who have trained with me and you know how to go into your own Akashic Records, always remember that you can go into your business records. You just change the name from your own name into the name of the business, and you can get really good business advice from your Akashic Records business guides. I am currently in the process of working with my own Akashic Records business guides about 2025 and what we're going to be bringing through for the 2025 year based on the energies coming in for that year. So it can be a really helpful place for you to dip into whenever you schedule a review of your financials and of your business and where you're going with your business. Let's get into my 10 tips, and please remember that these are in no particular order. One of these isn't more important than the other. These were just the tips that I thought might be helpful to you if you're just starting out or you've been running your own spiritual business for a while and you've kind of hit a little bit of a plateau and you just want some business advice from someone who is doing this every single day. Number one is your why needs to be bigger than anything else. Your why needs to be bigger than your desire for money, than your desire for fame, whatever it is. And I'm not saying that desire for money or fame is inherently wrong, but the why behind the business has to be the biggest driver. The reason for this is because that why you're doing what you're doing is going to be the thing that's going to get you through tough times. It's going to be the thing that drives you forward when maybe you're stuck on what content to make, or you're not sure about your next offering, or whatever it is that's coming up in your business for you. If you have a good, defined, solid why, it's really going to help you through those tough times. Your why is your reason for doing it. And I know lots of you are feeling this call to be of service, and that call to be of service is your why. That ability to help other people in whichever modality it is that you're helping people, that has to be bigger than any other consideration in your business. First of all, sitting down, getting really clear on that why and really fleshing it out, writing it down, getting clear on exactly what that why is, and then revisiting that every month, every 3 months, however often you sit to review your business, is extremely important. Number two is remembering that if you are running a spiritual business, you are running a business. This might sound like a really obvious statement, but a lot of the time people will expect everything just to fall into their lap because they felt that call to be of service and they have put their offerings up on the internet, and then they just expect people to find them. Now, when it comes to running a business, you have to know the basics of what you're doing. You have to understand what your business offering is. You have to understand who your business is for. You have to understand how to market your business. And with all of this being taken into consideration, you also have to remember how noisy the marketplace is. When you're putting content out there on the internet, what you have to remember is so are millions and probably billions of other people doing the same thing. So posting once a week on Instagram about whatever it is that you're offering is not then going to automatically fill your schedule or fill your diary. Okay. You're running a business, and no matter how many of these influencers out there tell you that they only work 10 hours a week and they're making $100,000 a month, what they aren't telling you is that to get to that point, they have had to build their business, they've had to build systems, they've had to build processes in place. Okay, so if you're just starting out and you're seeing all of these people who seem to not do very much work and have lots of income coming in, please don't fall for that. Running a business is hard, and it's going to require consistency, and it's going to require some discipline. You're working in co-creation with your guides, the universe, source consciousness. So yes, your guides will absolutely ensure that the right people find you. My guides are brilliant at making me pop up on somebody's Instagram, somebody's podcast selection, whatever it is that needs to find me. But my part of that deal is that I am going to show up. I'm going to produce content. I am going to consistently show up for my business. Please don't expect your spirit guides to come in and do all the work for you. There is an element that you have to put the work in as well. You can do all of the manifestation rituals that you want. You can say as many affirmations as you want. You can visualize as much as you want. But if you aren't taking the time to learn how to run a business and you want to be a business owner, then I would definitely recommend taking some time to actually understand the fundamentals of business. This can be through books, it can be through YouTube videos, it can be through whatever means, but actually sitting with yourself and going, okay, even though I know that this is aligned to my soul, even though I know this is my call to be of service, it's my responsibility to sit down and work out how to actually run a business. Number 3 is you have to understand that if your nervous system is dysregulated, if your root chakra is imbalanced, you are really going to struggle to run your business or to do anything in your business. Let me explain. A dysregulated nervous system or an imbalanced root chakra is when you are in survival mode. You are in a state of fear and you will be in fight, flight, fright, or freeze. Now, when you're in this energy, all that matters is your basic survival needs. And if you don't address that problem first and you try to run a business from that energy, there is no space for creativity to flow. There is no space for insights to come in. And what you're going to find is that you're going to be going out to your potential clients and your potential customers from an energy of fear and an energy of desperation. And this is not going to appeal to any of your clients. If you are someone who knows that they have a particularly dysregulated nervous system or an imbalanced root chakra, then please address this first before you go into launching a business. Running a business, being self-employed, is extremely dysregulating to the nervous system because you are responsible for your level of income. You're responsible for having a level of income that is going to pay your bills, that's going to have money in the bank for if you get sick or anything like this. And if you don't have a regulated position to start with, and then you add in this dynamic of uncertainty that running a business brings in, you're just going to burn yourself out. You're going to approach your marketplace from the wrong energy, and that's going to be repellent to those potential clients of yours. If you know you have this needs to be dealt with, do that, prioritize that before launching your business or before launching your next product or whatever it is that you're thinking about. On top of that, if you are a business owner and you're running a business, you need to keep on top of how regulated your nervous system is every single day. You need to really know yourself from the perspective of an energetic space. And when things come up for you in the time where you're running your business, which they will, you take time out to address those issues and keep on top of your own energetic frequency. This is really important because you want to be operating your business from the highest frequency that you can to attract people into you that you can help. This doesn't mean that you have to be perfect or fully healed to run a business, but you have to be aware that looking after yourself, making sure your nervous system is regulated, having practices to help support you whilst you're running your business are going to be extremely important. Number 4 is please understand that no matter how many social media guru videos you watch, you are never going to beat and you are never going to understand the algorithms. This isn't to say don't go and get tips off people who, study Instagram or TikTok or wherever it is you're posting your content, but you're never going to beat or truly understand the algorithms. They change so much. Instagram and TikTok will say, we want long form content, we want short form content, we want this, we want this. You're never going to get on top of it, and trying to understand the algorithm and trying to beat the algorithm is a surefire way to burn yourself out and overcomplicate the process. If you just accept from the start that you aren't going to beat and you are very likely not going to understand the algorithm and what that app wants from you, and you accept that at the very start, what you then do is you can then turn your focus on to, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my content consistently. I'm going to try different forms of content. I'm going to try different things, but I'm going to try this consistently. What I'm going to do is when I've done this consistently for a set period, whether it's 30 days, 90 days, whatever works for you, then I'm going to sit back and as a business owner, I am going to review the data, and that data is what has worked and what has not worked for you based on what you have put out to whichever social media platform you're working with. As a business owner, you have to get comfortable with looking at your data and with looking at your financials. If you want to bury your head in the sand about either of those things, you need to address why you want to bury your head in the sand about those things first. Because as a business owner, looking at those things from an objective perspective and analysing the position that you're at and what to do in the coming month or quarter is just part of the job. Number 5 is remember the law of 3 when you are planning your working week schedule. The law of 3, you will see this in many esoteric traditions. The fourth way tradition tends to go into this in quite a lot of detail, but you'll also see the law of 3 represented in the Trinity across multiple traditions. The law of 3 is basically that there are 3 forces at play all of the time. And this is your active, this is your passive, and this is your neutral. And each of those 3 forces are at play. When I say remember the law of 3 when planning your week, you want to make sure that your triangle is balanced. Okay, so this means giving yourself time for active work, which could be creating content, seeing clients, going to networking events. That would be your active side, okay? Your passive side would be you learning something from a teacher, reading a new book, something where you're bringing information in respect of your business. So you've got your active side, which is the doing part of your business. You've got the passive side, which is the enhancing of your skills. And then you have the neutral side. And the neutral side is where you are going to make space for that creative energy to flow. What this does is this makes space for you to have inspiration, for you to have new ideas, for you to be able to receive guidance from your guide team, from your higher self. It's extremely important when you look at your week that there is time for active, passive, and neutral activities. This doesn't have to be a linear system, so it doesn't have to be, well, I've spent 4 hours today in active, therefore I also need 4 hours in passive and in neutral. Everybody has a ratio that's going to work best for them. What I would suggest that you do is you start to feel into how much time in the week of my business do I need for doing the active side. So the creating of the content, the writing courses, writing blog posts, whatever it is. How much time do I need for my own development, whether it's development in respect of new skills or development in respect of business? How much time do I need for that? And then how much time do I need to create that space for that new to come in? Number 6 is one that nobody likes to hear, but I think is just advice that needs to be given. It is very normal for you to have to work your service job, so your job being of service, your building of your new business as a side business to start with. I know this is not what anybody wants to hear. They want to hear that when they get aligned to their soul's mission and they get that call to be of service and they're ready to go, that everything's just going to fall into place and they're going to be able to leave their job and start this business and they're going to be financially free and abundant and receiving more wealth than they ever have done, okay? But that's not how it really works. And it can often be necessary for you to have a steady source of income, so a day-to-day job that you do, and then start building your business on the side to provide you with that safety and security, so to know that your bills are paid and that you can buy food, to keep that nervous system regulated. For some people, it can just be too big of a jump from a nervous system dysregulation perspective to go from the security of a salaried job to self-employment in one foul swoop. For lots of people, the better approach is to accept that they're going to have to do this business on the side and that it's a case of building that spiritual business on the side in a way that's not going to burn them out and exhaust them, but in a way that they can do their normal day-to-day job as well. Number 7 is, as I alluded to earlier, running your own business is going to bring stuff up for you. If you have issues around your self-worth, if you have issues around people-pleasing, money wounding, imposter syndrome, fears of judgment, fears of being seen, all of this stuff is going to come up when you're running your own business. You have to make sure that, first of all, that you identify when those things do come up, and then having practices to be able to address those so that you don't just go into freeze mode and just stop running your business completely because something has come up for you. I want to really impress the point that these things will come up and it's completely okay if they do come up. It doesn't mean I've stepped into the role of service too quickly, or I shouldn't be running my own business because I haven't dealt with all of this stuff. Part of the reason why you're feeling called to service and running your own business to allow these things to come up and be dealt with. I never want anyone to have these things come up and then just stop, because I see so many people holding themselves back who are gifted, talented individuals, and then things will come up for them and they just stop. Okay? It's completely normal. There are many tools and methods and practices and teachers and guides and coaches who can help you through all of this. The first job is to just address that it is coming up and then finding your way to work through it that works best for you. Number 8 is a little bit about social media. Obviously, we could talk about social media all day, but what I want to say here is, first of all, please remember that you don't own your social media. Even if you are paying for the blue tick like I do on Instagram, you do not own your social media. Social media platforms all have the ability to remove, delete, shadow ban your account whenever they choose to. So remembering to build assets in your business, so having a mailing list, having your own website, even if it's just a one-page website, but having something that if the social media platform does decide to remove your account, means that your business doesn't automatically end. Social media is something that we put a lot of time and effort into, and it's absolutely a great way for people to find you and for you to be able to communicate what it is that you do and your messages for people and your information for people. But we have to remember that we don't own it. It isn't our business, and it's only actually quite a small part of your business. Along with that, please remember that social media really distorts your view of numbers. What I mean by that is oftentimes people will say, oh, I made this post, I put loads of effort into it, and only 100 people saw it, or only 100 people liked it. If you were stood in a room full of 100 people and they were interested in what you had to say, you would be delighted. Okay? So try to remember when you are sitting back and doing your review and you're looking at your data, if 50 people have saved your post or liked your post, that's 50 people who are interested in what you have to say. I know it's easy to get really sucked into, I need to have big view counts, but in reality, view counts don't mean anything. That's just the number of people who your post has happened across the page of. And big view counts don't mean more people who are interested in what you do, more people who are following you, more people who are interested in using your services. So try to always keep an objective perspective when you're looking at your social media, and try to pay attention when you're looking at your data to those numbers, and remember that there is a distortion that goes on in social media because you see big accounts with millions of followers and hundreds of thousands of likes. It's not necessary to have big follower numbers or big views or big like counts or lots and lots of comments for you to be a successful business owner. Always remember there is this distortion, and of course, remember that you don't own that. Number 9 is do not be afraid to ask for help, to seek out help, to even use certain systems to try and understand yourself better. For example, human design and knowing your human design profile can be really helpful in running your business. It doesn't have to be a complicated, in-depth human design understanding, but understanding if you're a projector or if you're a manifesting generator can be helpful when it comes to how you're going to market yourself and how you're going to position yourself. There is nothing wrong with using these resources, getting a better understanding of yourself, and really asking for help and digging into this stuff. However, please don't let that stop you. Because again, what I see is people will think, well, I need to find this out about myself. I need to learn more about this. And it stops them from actually getting out there and doing the business. You're never going to feel ready. You're never going to feel fully prepared. You're never going to feel that you have every box ticked and now you're ready to launch your business. A lot of your growth and your development as a business owner is going to happen when you're in the field, when you're doing the work. Okay, so absolutely use the systems and information that's out there. There is loads of information and great systems to work with, but don't let it stop you actually getting started. Number 10 is that even though this is a spiritual business, so there is often an intuitive aspect, a feminine energy aspect of resting and relaxing and feeling into where you want to take the business, you have to remember that consistency and discipline are also required. The more masculine energy aspects of running a business. So this goes back to the law of three. You want to make sure you have a balanced triangle. If you are working with that beautiful, intuitive, internal divine feminine energy and you're resting and you're relaxing and you're waiting for the time to come where you feel ready, that time will never come. What you have to do is you have to absolutely work with that beautiful intuitive energy and allow time for rest and for play, but you also have to show up consistently for your business and you also have to have a discipline. Okay. Running your own business does require you to have a structure and consistency in doing so. I hope that you have found this episode useful. I know it is a little bit different to the topics that I would usually talk about, but I thought it was necessary just as someone who is in this industry and has been running a business for a number of years now to just share these points with you. Always thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing the podcast with people who you think it will be interesting to. Thank you for interacting with my polls and the comments on the podcast. And for those of you who reach out to me on Instagram and tell me that you're finding this podcast helpful. So have a beautiful, restful weekend, and I will see you next week for the next episode.